So thank you so much, Kristen, for joining me.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited. I don't know how long I've followed you for actually on Instagram, but I love your hilarious and also heartfelt reels, especially. I think we're all into the short little videos and things like that now. So,
Right?
it's so easy to listen and to absorb stuff that way, I find. Does that make sense?
Yep. Little bite-sized information. I agree. It's nice. I learn best that way also.
Yeah, little short bite-sized pieces. And so what we're going to be talking about today is parenting our teens, which I haven't had someone on for quite a while, specifically talking about teenagers and the differences, the challenges and things like that that come along with parenting teens. My kids are not yet in the teen years. They're still little. They're 5 and 8.
Right?
So I'm going to
Oh, cute.
absorb everything you say.
That's great. I love it. I always applaud the parents that have younger kids because they're planning ahead. And I think the more you can plan ahead and think, I am excited about the teen years, I'm going to just go into it with a positive attitude. You'll just be so much better off than those that are like, I don't want to talk about teens. I don't like teens. I don't want to think about it. I've heard they're terrible, So I just say, you do absorb all that you can and go into it. You'll be better.
Yeah, I think that's such a good perspective to have and a good energy because like I hear lots of stories of people saying, oh, wait till the teen years and good luck, enjoy these years while you have them. And I'm like, oh no, what am I in for?
I know, right? It's so daunting when you hear that and it kind of, just you feel like you want to brace for impact and it's challenging in different ways, but it doesn't have to be terrible. I mean, I just love the relationship with my teenagers. I love them so much and it's hard and I mess up and I have to keep relearning and, constantly telling them, I'm sorry for what I did. Will you forgive me? And, they have so much grace and forgiveness, honestly. They just so much more credit than they're given. And I'm just grateful that my kids are just recognize that I'm imperfect and I tell them all the time, I'm still figuring it out. And I think just going into it with that attitude just helps so much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we are far from perfect. Well, at least I am. And I don't want my kids to feel like they have to follow everything I say because I'm always right, because I'm so not. So anyway, let me introduce you to those people who
Okay, great.
already know you. Kristen
Okay, let's do
is
it.
she is a beautiful parenting teens mentor. Her Instagram is beautiful and hilarious. And please, if you are not already following her, go on and follow her at Kristen Duke Chats. Love her account there. She is someone who is, really helping parents of teenagers to create the relationship of their dreams by recognizing the importance of controlling our emotions, managing big emotions, ours and our teenagers, and also being aware of blind spots, which I think is really, really interesting. I love that concept. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of different things regarding parenting and raising teens, things like controlling our emotions, how we can do that, respecting our teen. I actually have I have a question on a really cool, actually one of your reels that you posted.
Okay, excellent. Can't wait.
And also, this is another one, actually, being a fun parent as well as building connection and yet still having respect from our teenagers, So I don't know, well, do I know where to start? I'm gonna just pick out one of the things that I
Great.
think really maybe really beneficial for parents of teenagers to reflect on and think about. You did a reel about this and you had both coming along the bottom,
Oh
BOAF.
yeah. Uh-huh. Right.
And
There was a funny audio where a
yeah,
guy was saying both and he spelled it BOAF and it's not right. It's supposed to be both, but they sound very similar.
I had to watch that like 3 times. I was like, "Both?" And I was like, "Oh, both." It
What
was
does
so
that mean?
so my I guess aligned with that reel, if no one's seen it, was my question of how can we have fun with our teens and yet also have that respect from them? Because we do need to be able to have, I'm not at all going to say like that sort of power dynamic, but the authority of we need our children and our teens to listen to us and our advice and to have some boundaries and rules and things like that. How do we kind of balance those?
It's really tricky, and I think I hear from so many people, I'm not my child's friend, I'm their parent. And that's where I come in and say, well, you can actually be both. And I aspire to be their friend. I want to be friends with them as a teenager. I want to be friends with them as an adult. And being friends with them doesn't mean that I tell them everything to do and they listen to me. And being friends with them doesn't mean that they get away with doing everything just because they feel like it, you know? So there's a sweet spot, and I think with each child it's a little bit different. But I think to me it's a lot of it is beneficial if you can cultivate it when your kids are younger, when they're 5 and they're 8 and they're 10 and 11, when you're cultivating that authority, when you're kind of guiding and instructing a lot in the preteen years. And so when they're on that cusp of preteen to teen, that's kind of when you kind of let them take over. Like, I've already instructed them. I've told them how to live. I've told them, you've guided them on so many different things. And when they kind of get to that, 13's still a little young, but 14, 15, 16, it's kind of time to let them, you know, take what you've given them and implement it into their life. That's not really the time for instruction. The time for instruction has passed. And sometimes I still say, I have some people say, oh, I wish I would have learned this when my kids were younger. I feel like it's too late. I still feel strongly that it doesn't have to be too late. If you can apologize and say, listen, I did it this way. I wish I would have done it this way. Will you help me start over? Having that conversation, that mature conversation with your kids where you're saying, I wish I would have done it differently. And so the idea is that you're the mentor. You're there to help guide them to what you've already previously taught and instructed, so that when they're the teen, you still have so much advice to give, but it's like, hey, I have some thoughts. Are you interested in hearing? And if they say no, then back off. And maybe you can try it again tomorrow. Hey, I asked yesterday if you were interested. I wondered if anything changed today. And sometimes it does. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I really do want to hear what you have to say. And sometimes it doesn't. And being okay with that. And that's really hard. I'm not perfect at it, but I'm learning. They still need reminders and they still need nudges, but they're annoyed with the reminders and nudges. And so you have to strike that balance of, I'm going to still keep reminding you, and maybe I won't remind you 10 times. Maybe I'll just remind you 2 times.
That's so much.
It's so tricky.
I feel like I want to take notes, but I'm not going to. I'll watch this back later.
Okay.
I love
Sounds good. Yeah.
I love that sort of kind of like a phrase that you said, hey, I've got some thoughts on this. I wonder if you want to hear them, or can we chat about it, rather than don't you forget that you da da da, or hey, you have to make sure, like, we don't, I wouldn't like someone, maybe a boss or someone in my workplace or my husband, telling me what to do and controlling. I think, is this a
Right.
little bit of a thing? Do we need to let go of some control over those years?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I actually have this book title in my head that I'm going to write someday, is just letting go of control. You think of a tug of war, there's a rope and there's 2 people on either side and there's lots of tugging back and forth. And I think a lot of the teen years, unfortunately, is that tug of war. And you think about when you have rope burns on your hands from pulling so hard, it leaves these marks and red open wounds. Some, bleeding can happen when
Yeah.
you're pulling that hard. And it's just kind of the imagery of when you're trying to be so controlling, it hurts you and it hurts your child. And so it just doesn't benefit. You just think of those fresh wounds from the tug of war. It's just painful for everyone. but it's painful to let go too. And as a parent, that's what we're supposed to be doing a little bit now, is kind of, I call them pre-adults, 16, 17, 18. Most 18-year-olds move out of the house, whether they're in college or they're just kind of getting a job on their own. We kind of want them to, right? You don't want your adult child living at home. You raise them for the sake of moving out. Unfortunately, as heartbreaking as it is, that's kind of the reality of it all. And so, I mean, I hear so many parents say, "Oh, I'm not going to let my child do that till they move out of the house." And I think, oh, I'd like to teach them to step into that zone while they're still under my roof, and while I have the opportunity to observe and say, "Hey, I have some thoughts on that. Do you want to hear?" And like I said, sometimes they'll say no, but when you actually are respectful and saying, "I have some thoughts, would you like to hear?" that you're giving them that option, and
Yeah.
they feel more empowered, and they're kind of more likely to say, "Okay, sure. What do you want?" They might reluctantly say, "Sure, what do you want to say?"
Mm.
"Well, here's what I was thinking." Because
Oh,
ideally, you want them to come up with their own ideas, and it's difficult because we have so much wisdom as adults, right? I mean, you and me, we've just lived life, and we've lived life, and they don't know, they don't realize how much we really know and understand.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I think respecting your teenager doesn't mean you're okay, fine, like you make the choices now, off and go. It's not that hands off, I don't care anymore, I'm going to let you do you. It's a balance of, I see that you want to make your choices and they need that autonomy and independence. And yet I still, like you said, we've still got some of that life experience and that wisdom to just be able to share with them. And then it is up to them whether they take that on or not. And so does that mean we have to, if they're going to make a mistake or we can see the car like veering off, we have to
Sure.
sometimes let that happen?
You let that happen where you take over the control, is that what you're saying? Or take
No,
over
let it happen
the
where you go, okay, that's your choice, and I kind of see that it was not going to work out, but go for it,
Yeah, it's so variable on the situation, right? And I think like that's where it comes, like trying to be in tune with yourself, being in tune with your child, having, we're going to talk about fun here in a second. When you have this fun, lighthearted relationship, there's a higher likelihood that they're interested in what you have to say as it pertains to important things. And so I think, if it's mistakes like maybe it's a school assignment that they just keep forgetting, or if it's a mistake like a friendship thing, so there's some things that you think, I have to allow them to crash and burn, or, that's how they learn the lesson. If it's like a life threatening thing, or like a car drive,
Yeah.
dating thing, there's just certain things where you just sometimes have to be like, "Listen, for the most part, I want to support you making the decisions, but I don't feel good about this. I don't feel good about you going out with this person that I don't know,
Mhm.
and or you going in the car with this person that I've never met before." And so, I mean, I think when you value their other decisions, and when you have that connected relationship by having fun, then they're more likely to be like, "Okay, I see, I agree, I see what you're saying," and listen a little bit more than otherwise.
Yeah. And I think, as you said, that can happen when they are much, much younger than the teenage years. For my age kids or even toddlers, we can allow them to make some decisions and see how they go and impart a little bit of advice, but then allow, like, let go of some of that control. It's so
Right.
hard.
No, and it's hard. And I remember seeing when I was a few years ago, I've seen this a few times, but I remember specifically a friend at a park, and they're, I don't know, 5, 6, 7-year-old, not too young, was climbing up on this wall, and it was probably 3 feet off the ground, and it was pretty wide. And they were climbing, they're just walking up there, and she was like, "Don't walk up there, you'll fall." And I remember, first of all, thinking, well, how does she know he's gonna fall? Like, that's like rephrasing it into like, "Oh, I don't want you to fall," or "That feels unsafe to me," is different than "Don't do it, you're going to,"
Mm,
because that's not a fact. And then my other thought is, he might fall, but he's not going to break his leg. Like, it's not that high that he's going to break his leg. And so those are kind of some of those things that are like, first of all, you can change the language about how you talk about it. And second of all, just saying, Yeah, so what? So what if he falls? He's gonna scrape his knee and he's gonna cry,
Mhm.
and he'll learn. He'll learn from the mistake of maybe I shouldn't jump around on the wall so much. So those are some of the things that as they're younger, it really does play into the trust factor for when they're older as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important. I want to talk about I don't know if this will make sense to you, your lightsaber reel.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
When we look at me saying like I'm in the reel with you.
Yes, I love it. I love it. We
um,
can make it real, you and me. Let's do it.
it was about connecting whilst you're correcting your child. If your child has, I think the example was, they had gone out or stayed out too late, things like that. How do we, when we need to tell our teenager or our child that something isn't okay, or their behavior, or they've made a wrong choice, how do we sort of do that in a connected way with the lightsabers?
Right, I know. The guy that I actually did that with is the one that came up with it, so I can't take any credit for it, but he did a
Oh.
really good job. Curfew is a tricky one with some parents and teens because the challenge is, I've been fairly lucky in that my teens, their friends have similar curfews. And so there hasn't been too much of a challenge for me in that sense. Every once in a while, they're like, oh, can we stay out later? But I mean, I've heard from some parents, my teen's friends don't have a curfew. And so my teen is telling me I'm the only one that has a curfew, that has to be home at a certain time. And that's a really difficult situation to be put in as a parent because there's so many reasons why a curfew is important. Safety, and look, who needs to be, you don't need to be driving around after midnight. I mean, I don't know. But then again, at the same time, you want to be able to hang out with your friends. And so I think the thing is, and something that I've talked about a little bit more recently is having that communication and saying, allowing mistakes more than once. And parents get annoyed and parents feel disrespected, but it's not
Mhm.
really about them when a teen doesn't adhere to the curfew. And so there's so much wrapped up in that. First of all, like, it's actually not about you. They're like, my teen's not respecting our family rules because they're not coming in a curfew. Well, they're just thinking about they want to hang out with their friends. Like, it makes sense to me why they would want to hang out with their friends longer. So I think really just comes down to, okay, hey, we've talked about curfew being midnight. This is now the third time that you've come in after midnight. So like you've allowed room for, the misstep or the mistake
Mhm.
multiple times. I'm feeling a little frustrated. And some parents say, I want to go to bed. And so, it's about me being tired, or it's really just not safe to be driving around. Like explaining in a calm way, reminding why there's a curfew and validating, like, I get it that some of your friends don't have a curfew, and that stinks. I get how frustrating, like helping them to see that you understand their side, letting them share their side and say, I'm good with it every once in a while. What if maybe you guys hang out at our house? Offering some solutions and just like saying, I just need you to communicate with me. We can extend the curfew every once in a while, but and you just kind of talk through and help them to see that you see it, talk through solutions. Like I said, allowing for the missteps and not always feeling like you got to slap on a consequence every single time. It's just not
Oh,
necessary.
yes. I was
But some parents think they're going to get walked all over. And I think when you respect your teen, they respect you.
Yeah, I think that is such a important point for us parents to understand. If we want our child or teenager or anyone to respect us, first we need to show that respect in those tough conversations and in those times when we're unhappy with what they've done. For example, you sort of talked about, being collaborative and solving those problems with them rather than just, slapping like a knee-jerk consequence of, fine, you know what? For the next 2 weeks, guess who's not going out? Like, that's going to end in disaster.
Right. Yeah. Those types of things just break communication and connection. It just breaks trust. They're just going to be so mad at you. And some parents are like, that's fine. I'm the parent. I don't care if they're mad at me. And I think there's just a better way.
Yeah.
There are better ways.
And so one of the things we were going to talk about, which I think fits in nicely now, is how do we then as parents control our emotions and our reactions so that we aren't doing that stuff?
It's a process. It takes practice. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been talking about it for several years, and I feel like I'm the teacher, and I still have trouble with it. But it is amazing how much practice, and then expressing to your child, I'm trying, I'm learning. Please be patient with me. Please forgive me, and just saying, listen, I'm frustrated. Also, I recognize you're frustrated. And helping them to see that you're human, also that you have emotions. Reminding them that you're imperfect. Some people don't like doing that with their kids, but I feel like it's such a great bonding experience to be able to say I'm imperfect, and just be able just keep practicing. It's hard. I remember seeing a few years ago a yelling challenge where there was a challenge for moms to stop yelling, and so many people were having such a hard time. And I remember when my kids were little, and you just get so irritable sometimes when things don't go your way as a mom. And I remember yelling, and I remember thinking, I don't like this person. I don't like how I feel. I don't like the look on my kids' faces when I'm yelling at them. And I remember just constantly reminding myself, I don't want to be a yeller. I don't want them to remember me that way. I don't like the way my throat feels when I'm yelling. I got a sore throat after this. And so, but it was just those constant reminders. And sometimes it's like putting a note up on the wall of, just striving for improvement, having something to remind you, I don't want to be a yeller, or I don't want to be this emotional person. I want to be someone that my child can trust. And when my emotions are all over the place, they can't trust that.
Mm.
And it's about being the adult,
Mm.
which is hard because we're allowed to have emotions too, and we do.
Yeah.
And when they're fewer and far between, I think it's more doable than when it's every day.
Yeah, that's why so many things you mentioned touch on emotional intelligence, which is what our group, Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids is all about. We have to be able to recognize and understand our own emotions and our own reactions and why we are triggered. Like, we have patterns of triggers, and we have what I call setting conditions, things that happen that lead up to us flipping our lid. And so,
Oh, sure.
we have kind of, I guess I want to say, the work which starts with us, which is what we're talking about, managing our emotions and working with our child or our teenager, not coming at this unilateral, because I said so, you just fall in line. That striving for compliance and obedience, just like you said, it kind of fractures that relationship, that connection. And then sooner or later, our kid's going to be in their 20s, and they're going to say, well, I don't need you anymore, so see ya. I don't, that stuff scares me.
It is heartbreaking. I've actually heard from so many, maybe people my age, who have said, that's how my mom treated me. She still treats me this way. And I don't want anything to do with her. And I'm a 40-year-old woman. My mom's 60 something, people saying that's what my mom did. She still does it. And I don't like it. And so, yeah, I mean, it can be a long lasting thing. So might as well learn to control your emotions now.
Yeah, 100%. So the last thing I wanted to ask, well, we kind of touched a little bit on this, but how can we bring fun back into parenting our teens when sometimes we are really worried about the choices they're making, or their behavior, or their emotions and ours, and all that stuff? How can we sort of bring some of that fun into our relationship?
It's so important. You mentioned, even if you have a fractured relationship, I think that's the time to try and find a way to infuse fun the most. Because if you have a fractured relationship, your teen is stressed, they're sad, maybe they're grumpy, and they might not even like all of your suggestions. But I mean, you can think of ways doing fun things as a family, as one example. Sometimes they maybe like a sibling better. Trying to do one-on-one. Some teens aren't as interested in one-on-one. And I just say, it doesn't even have to be big things like that, outings. I think about memes. What is something that your child loves? Does your child love soccer? Do they love dancing? Or, find something that they love. You probably don't love it all that much. You love it, you like it because they do.
Mm.
But trying to find something to connect on their level and just say, hey, do a little Google search for like funny, what do they call it? Soccer? They call it football over there.
No, soccer. Yeah, soccer.
Okay, soccer. Do a little soccer, like Google search, funny soccer meme. And then you'll come up with all these funny pictures and then just screenshot it and you can text it to them. Sometimes if they don't want to have a conversation with you, if it's that fractured, hey, I saw this funny meme and I thought of you. Start with the little things. That's what their language is. Or a YouTube video. Hey, I saw this video and I thought you might like it. Or like dumb cats and dogs doing tricks. I mean, I am so not interested in those things. But if I happen to see one, I'm like, oh, that's funny. And send that to them. Say, oh, I saw this video. I thought it would be funny. So you can send it and then you can even show it to them. Hey, I saw this video. I thought you might think it was funny. And so it's little things that you can kind of step in, to their world. Maybe they like playing video games. Sit next to them. Oh, tell me about your video game. I don't care about video games, but because my child cares, they're going to love talking about something that they love. So find a way to get curious and ask questions around something they love and just kind of getting out there. A lot of times I'm just like, my mind is so over, as moms, we're the mental manager of the family. And sometimes fun just feels like the last thing on my list. And so you have to be intentional. And sometimes it's setting a timer on your phone, 5 o'clock every day. I'm going to look up a meme and have fun, or just remind yourself, I got to put little notes around, remind myself to have fun, because sometimes I think we can be a stick in the mud because we're making dinner and we're going shopping and we're reminding them about this and we're doing that. And that's not so fun to be around. Like we got to find ways to be fun at the same time so that they're going to want to enjoy company with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It be more intentional about it, I think. So actually that's a good moment, I think, to ask you about your intentional connection playbook that you have for all parents.
Yes, I do have a link. You can just go straight to KristenDuke.com and get it. It's on the homepage. It is a freebie. And when you grab it, it's a 10-page. I have 10 of some of my favorite tips for connection. Some of them are a little more, some of them it's like a daily thing that we do in our family, just maybe thinking outside of the box. So when you grab that, then you're part of my bestie club and you'll occasionally get my newsletters and stuff. I'm terrible at actually writing them, but you're on my bestie club list from that. And I was going to say, I actually do have a Facebook page that my reels now post to. So if some people aren't on Instagram, it's called Capturing Joy with Kristen Duke. I've had it for so long and Facebook only lets you change it so many times. But anyway, that's another way you can view it if you're not on Instagram. But mostly I'm on Instagram, sharing the reels, talking, and the freebie if you want to get it through my newsletter too. Oh, thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for coming on. Thank you for lending us your time and sharing with us your wisdom about parenting teens and how we can be a mentor and a bit of a coach to them. I really love that. And thank you for that freebie for parents, guys. I will, if you are watching live on the Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids group, I will put that in the description and the comments so that you can find it easily. And if you are watching this later on YouTube, then you will just be able to check down below in the description, and I will put Kristen's links there. Please go on and literally spend 5 minutes watching her reels. You'll probably get lost down the rabbit hole. Sorry. But I love them. Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there any one last thing you wanted to leave parents with?
No, I think we're good. We had a great chat. I loved your questions. Very thoughtful. And, just plan ahead, have some fun. And some people are kind of to the point where they do have this fractured place, and it takes some steps backwards before you can go forward sometimes. But don't lose hope. That's what I say. Don't lose hope.
Yeah, it's always possible. Thank you.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you again. And guys, please stay tuned over the next week. Every week, really, we have someone else different come on and share their insights and their wisdom about parenting and related topics. So keep an eye out for those. And if you are not in the Facebook group and you're watching this on YouTube, head over to Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Thanks, guys.